Hi, Papa Yeager here with This Day in History. February 7th, 1962, the embargo against Cuba, the U.S. embargo against Cuba goes into effect. This embargo effectively cut trade completely between the two countries. Relations between Cuba and the United States started to sour in 1959 when Fidel Castro got rid of the government that was backed by the United States. Castro led a revolution in Cuba. He won. The government that the United States wanted there was pushed out. The United States was not pleased with this. Initially, after the revolution, when Fidel Castro was the head of Cuba, he came to the United States in an effort to raise goodwill. He wanted good relations between the United States and Cuba. But at the time, Eisenhower was president, and Eisenhower was convinced he was a communist. And he didn't want relations with communists. It was the Cold War. Remember, Cold War. We were against communism, the spread. We had hot wars due to this Cold War. So Eisenhower, despite Castro's attempt to increase relations, make them friendlier, Eisenhower was not having it. He just didn't trust Castro. So he cut off the oil supply, American oil supply to Cuba. At that point, Fidel Castro nationalized the 3 oil refineries on the island, on Cuba. This just set things back even further. And as time went by, things got icier between the two nations. And because of the fact that the United States was not even trying to have some sort of good relationship with Castro, Castro ultimately declared, yes, he was a Marxist. This just deteriorated things further. Then Kennedy comes into office. And it was during Kennedy's term that we had the Bay of Pigs invasion, where the United States was the CIA was going to attempt to overthrow Castro. It was botched. It did not go well. Things soured. And then in 1962, Kennedy just came in with the full embargo against Cuba, cutting off all trade. The embargo has been in existence ever since. It has hurt both economies. Both economies suffer from this embargo. But because Cuba is smaller, it suffers more. And United States citizens are not technically supposed to travel to Cuba. So Cuba is not getting the tourist dollars from America that other countries in the Caribbean are getting. Once things soured even further with the United States, the embargo, this just pushed Castro even closer to the Soviet Union. And they developed a closer relationship. But then, of course, the Soviet Union fell. And that just hurt the Cuban economy even more. It's important to note that the embargo has been going on for decades, and it never really brought about the outcome that embargoes are intended to bring about. Countries place embargoes because they want another country to cave in and give in to their demands. Cuba has never done that. So the embargo goes on. Of course, there have been periods of time where the embargo has been not, there's been lax ways of dealing with the embargo. And we had that with President Jimmy Carter and President Obama. They weren't as strict with the enforcement of the embargo. Anyway, that's This Day in History. February 7th, 1962, the full embargo against Cuba goes into effect.